Hey y'all, my name is Prashanth Kumar, or PK, and I'm an MCAT tutor at Shemmassian Academic Consulting. Today, we're going to be walking through an MCAT passage from the Psychology and Sociology section. You should be taking roughly 8.5 minutes for each of these passages, but today we're going to be going a little bit slower, so you can glean some tips, some tricks, and some strategies as you walk through it with me. Let's get it. So I've gone ahead and put the passage on the left with the figures and the questions on the right. So take a moment to pause the video, answer the questions, and come back to us. If not, let's get right into it. So when we go through a passage of any section, we want to have a strategy coming in. And for me, that goes by going paragraph by paragraph, writing a 3 to 5 word summary of each paragraph before I go on to the next one, and doing this for every paragraph until we finish. The reason I like doing this is because it provides a sort of check-in after each paragraph, making sure I understand it before going on to the next. This is sort of an accountability check that I'm not reading just words, I'm reading for understanding. And this prevents having to reread the entire passage in the future if I don't understand what's going on, as opposed to just rereading a paragraph if I don't understand what's going on. This saves a tremendous amount of time and really emphasizes understanding over simply reading. So for this, let's get right into it. Environmental factors are increasingly recognized as risk factors for neurodevelopmental disorders, NDDs. The presence of toxins and pollutants in the environment during gestation and development is possibly correlated with the onset of NDDs, but studies investigating a causal relationship between the two have been limited. So the question I ask myself after each paragraph is, what is happening? It's a really simple question that gets to the core of each paragraph. And so here, all I'm thinking is, okay, we have this environment and we're looking at NDDs. So we're looking at the relationship of environment and NDDs. I like to abbreviate, I like to put symbols, do whatever makes you comfortable. The reason I like to abbreviate and use symbols is it saves time. No one else is going to be reading this except me. So as long as I understand what's going on, that's perfect. So it's environment and NDD's relationship, right? We can go on to the next paragraph. Using rat models, researchers investigate the impact of traffic-related air pollution on early development and neurological health. Pregnant female rats were divided into 3 groups. 2 of the groups were moved to a laboratory facility adjacent to a major freeway tunnel. Of these 2 exposed groups, 1 group of rats was presented with traffic-related air pollution, while the other was presented with filtered air. A 3rd group of rats was housed at a location distant from any traffic systems. And so this is an experimental setup, right? We have 3 different experimental groups, so many details. I'm really not focused on what's going on here. My main understanding is we are testing 3 groups with diff environments, right? This is the basic question was the environment's relationship to NDDs, and this is the experimental setup. So if you want to put a little experimental setup right there to understand that it's an experiment, go for it. Anything that makes sense to you is exactly what we're doing, and so we're just looking at the experiment right here. The next paragraph, pregnant rats were moved to their respective laboratory conditions at approximately 14 days gestation. 2 male and 2 female pups from each resulting litter were raised in their respective conditions and regularly assessed for behavioral testing. A summary of the assessment battery is shown in Figure 1. So this is basically a table looking at developmental assessment with the different conditioned pups. And so I'm just going to write down observations, right? We don't want to go too much into depth. This is an important thing. We have figures, we'll have tables, we'll have everything. I don't like to go too into depth on the first read. Why? Because inevitably, the questions will ask us to come back to the passage and answer some questions based on a detail, based on understanding of something. And why focus too much time on understanding when we don't know exactly what's being asked? When we go to the question, we'll know exactly what's being asked. Let's not waste any time just guessing about what might be asked. Let's just go there. So this table and then these 2 charts, right? I see that there's some sort of experiments, some sort of data around these things, but I'm not going to focus way too much on them. I might just take a quick glance, see, okay, There's males and females in different settings and different vocalizations in these figures, different sort of following or chasing, social sniffing, self-grooming, so different sort of observations with the different conditions. So something basic in my head, not really going to focus in on it, other than having a general understanding that these are different observations in different groups. So right away, we're ready to get on into questions, which is awesome. So question number 1 is right here. In addition to the forelimb grasp reflex, researchers quantify the occurrence of a reflexive head turn in response to being touched with a whisker. This reflex is best described as A, the Moro reflex, B, the rooting reflex, C, the tonic neck reflex, or D, the parachute reflex. Okay, so this is a standalone question. It gives you information about this sort of reflexive head turn in response to being touched with the whisker. And right away, we should have an association to a specific type of reflex, and that is the rooting reflex. The rooting reflex is oftentimes in terms of breastfeeding. You get a little nudge across the face, or touch with the whisker in this case, and the baby will turn his head instinctively for rooting. We can go through the other reflexes. The Moro reflex is when a baby sort of flails his arms all out. The tonic neck reflex is an example of the baby extending his hand as though it looks like a fencer a little bit. The parachute reflex is when a baby is falling and it stretches its arms to sort of break its fall. So these are all examples of reflexes that are innate, but if you want to see videos of them, just Google them and they'll come up. But the rooting reflex is this example of sort of the baby's head turns in response to sort of a stimulus that initiates sort of rooting for breastfeeding. All right, so 1 for 1 right away. Very, very solid start. Question number 2. Okay. When one female pup was assessed for ultrasonic vocalizations, researchers observed she did not exhibit signs of distress, such as pacing and self-grooming. Upon reuniting with her mother and littermates, she appears to ignore the presence of others. In human children, this behavior can be best described as A, avoidant attachment style, B, disordered attachment style, C, secure attachment style, D, ambivalent attachment style. So this is an example of another standalone questions. We don't have to go into the passage. It gives us sort of this information and asks us to establish exactly what sort of attachment style this is. And when we think of attachment styles, we should think of a set of experiments by Ainsworth. And that we had parents interacting with children and seeing what happens when the parent steps away from the child and how the child interacts with the room, both when the parent's not there and when the parent returns. So in this case, she appears to ignore the presence of others when reunited. So this is an example of avoidant attachment style. Avoidant attachment style is when the parent will leave and then return, and the child will not want to interact with anyone. It kind of feels isolated, so it doesn't want to talk to anyone else. So it's, as the name kind of talks, avoidant. This is in opposition to secure attachment style. The secure attachment style was seen to be when the child would interact with the mother and the fellow children when the mother came back. And this is identified as sort of a healthy upbringing and a healthy attachment style. So right away we can see the difference between A and C as polar opposites. A disordered attachment style is when there isn't exactly one sense of attachment style that stands out comparatively. So this one, it doesn't exactly exist, so we're going to cross that out. And same with ambivalent attachment style. This means that there's no significant pattern of behavior across this sort of situation. So right away we can eliminate 3 answer choices, and it's pretty obvious based on the name alone that this is a style called avoidant attachment style. Look into the Ainsworth situational experiments if you have more questions about this. But right away, we're 2 for 2. So let's go on to question 3. Humans affected by NDDs who live within urban centers tend to establish families who are also diagnosed with NDDs. This is a phenomenon best described by A, intersectionality. These individuals hold multiple identities, including those afflicted with neurological disorder and living in a certain geographic area. B, food deserts. It's difficult to find nutritious, affordable food within certain urban centers, thus causing malnutrition. So C, social reproduction. Geographic and socioeconomic disparities have made it more difficult for families to move between social classes. And D, self-serving bias. Individuals who establish their families in urban centers attribute success to the opportunities that are provided in an urban center. Okay, so right away, this is another standalone question. So we're going to identify exactly what the piece of information that we're looking at is, right? It's saying humans affected by NDDs living in urban centers, established families who are also diagnosed with NDDs. So we see this sort of continuation down the line of NDDs, right? And so what would this be an example of? So let's go through them one by one. A, intersectionality. I don't think this is an exact idea of intersectionality. Intersectionality is when two different factors, whether that's race, gender, all of these things, are associated to, it's like biases, associated with biases and sort of holding multiple identities. So this isn't exactly what's going on here. B, food deserts. Not really talking about specifically humans affected by NDDs or the associations with people in urban centers. So we can cross that out. C, social reproduction. This seems to be our best answer. Why? Because it's saying this idea of people who exist in one situation or one generation, passing it on to the next generation. And so this is an example of social reproduction, of sort of when you have a wealthy family passing it on to the wealthier kids, and they're also wealthy, or a poor family passing it on to the poor and having poor kids. So social reproduction is sort of this idea, you're reproducing the setting you're in for your children or the next generation. And self-serving bias also doesn't really make sense in this case. It talks about how successes and failures are related to intrinsic and extrinsic factors, which doesn't really make sense as we are talking about the association of NDDs and going through generations. So C is our best answer, and we stick with that. And on to question D, or question 4. All right. Researchers conclude that living close to a high traffic environment results in higher incidences of NDDs and other health conditions. A retrospective data analysis also finds this to be true of other environmental factors, such as being located close to industrial plants. According to the demographic transition model, which stages would NDDs and other health conditions occur with the highest incidence rate? So right away, we're clued in on this one sort of idea, and that's the demographic transition model, which is a very important model of sort of how populations grow and cities are created and how urbanization goes. And so the idea is that there would be stages of sort of population growth and population steadiness, namely with the biggest sort of sense of population boom occurring with industrialization, and that is in Stage 2. Stage 2 is the one with high industrialization and high population boom. And so this one's saying, when were we going to have high industrial plants? And so we can think Stage 2 is associated with industrial plants. There's 5 stages to this process, as you can see in the answer choices, but only B and C include Stage 2. So we can eliminate answer choice A and answer choice D immediately. Now, choice C is talking about stages 1 through 5. And sort of the later stages focus less on this industrialization. They focus more on this transition to white collar work or specialization as opposed to industrialization. And so right away we can eliminate C2 and we're left with answer choice B. And I think this is a sort of easy understanding if you understand the model from the beginning, right? Where it's focused on environmental factors and industrialization, our mind should immediately go to Stage 2. And so it always identifies Stage 2 with an increase in industrialization and increase in population. And so right away, with that, we're 4 for 4. And note, we haven't even had to go to the passage yet. this is a very common type of thing with the psych-soc section, and that there will be a lot of standalone questions that require you to understand different models, different sort of theories, just to get to an answer choice without even the necessity of going back to the passage. Question number 5. Based on the data presented in Figure 3, what can the experimenters most reasonably conclude? A. Females raised in clean air environments are more likely to engage in self-grooming behavior than females raised in trap environments. B. Males raised in clean air environments are more likely to engage in social chasing than males raised in trap environments. C. Males raised in clean air environments are more likely to engage in social sniffing than males raised in trap environments. D. Females raised in trap environments are more likely to engage in social chasing than females raised in clean air environments. All right, so this is our first question where we know we have to go back into the passage. Why? Because it tells us the data in Figure 3. So we run back to Figure 3. But before we do, we want to note something about the answer choices, right? They're all saying that there is this main takeaway that we can conclude with. So we're checking which of these takeaways aligns with the Figure 3. And why is this important? Well, doing this requires statistical significance. And we'll see this with these figures, right? These figures will all have these sort of stars. Some of them will, some of them won't. But the stars represent statistical significance. So I just wanted to emphasize that a conclusion can only be drawn with statistical significance. So right away, I'm looking for those stars as we compare two different cases. So let's start with A. Females raised in clean air environments, right? Clean air environments are more likely to engage in self-grooming behavior than females raised in trap environments. So what are we looking for? Females in self-grooming behaviors. All right, so I'm going to our table, right? And we have male self-grooming and female self-grooming. So we look here. And what is the main question it's asking? It's saying clean air environments more likely to engage than females raised in trap environments. And right away, we don't see any statistical significance in this graph. So we can cross out answer choice A immediately. B, males raised in clean air environments. So we're looking at clean air environments in social chasing and then trap environments. And we're looking at males. So again, we go to our graph. We look at males and we look at social chasing. So here is our graph. And we're looking at clean air environments versus trap environments. So clean air environments versus trap environments. And we see trap environments have an increased time of chasing. So our answer choice doesn't make sense here, right? Here it says the clean environments are more likely to engage, but the opposite is true with answer choice B. So we cross that out. Let's go to C. Males raised in clean air environments are more likely to engage in social sniffing than males raised in trap environments. So again, go to the graph, social sniffing, right? That's right here, males social sniffing. And it says the clean air is more than the trap environments. And again, what do we note? There is no statistical significance here. So we can eliminate answer choice C. And that leaves us with answer choice D, which will be our answer, but we can go through it. Females raised in trap environments are more likely to engage in social chasing than females raised in clean air environments. So females, social chasing, right? So we're going to females and social chasing right here. And it's saying trap environments versus clean air environments. And we can see the trap environment here versus the clean air environment in the lab. And there is statistical significance. So that supports our answer choice D over the other things. Obviously, this is a little bit tedious, but by looking at statistical significance and eliminating answer choices without statistical significance, that eliminates some of the time we spend looking back and forth. Additionally, we can also focus on the keywords rather than reading through the entire answer choice, males, clean air environments, social chasing, trap environments, and note exactly which graphs we're looking at. That way we're not wasting too much time going back and forth. All right, and so with that, we've knocked out question 5, and we're 5 for 5. Great work. And so let me delete this. Question 6. The experiment described in this passage can best be defined as a case study, a cohort study, a qualitative survey, and a quantitative survey. Okay, so this is an interesting question that was probably going to be a specific type that you'll see on the actual MCAT. You have to have the understanding of different types of experiments and different types of studies. And so here we have this sort of experimental study of many groups. And so this should clue us in on our answer choice, but let's go through A through D right away. So what is a case study? A case study is a sort of observational study of a specific case. Oftentimes something that stands out with a remarkable pathology or history. And we're just focused on this one case or this select few cases. And this isn't exactly what's going on. Here we have a longitudinal study, right? We have something that's being studied over time with a whole population. So we can cross out answer choice A. A cohort study is exactly what we're thinking of when we think of this, right? We have different cohorts of mice, whether that's the trap, whether that's the lab, whether that's the clean air. And so we have different cohorts undergoing different actions, whether that's sniffing, chasing. So this is standing out as our best answer right now. Then we have the qualitative survey and the quantitative survey. And so this requires an understanding of what a survey actually is. Surveys are generally understood to be observational studies without necessarily experimentation or intervention. And so in this case, we clearly see interventions occurring with a cohort. And so we can cross out C and D because they're not really observations of population or observations of people reporting something. There is an inherent interaction of experimental sort of intervention and outcomes. And that's what we should be thinking of when we're thinking of a study as opposed to a survey. So B is our best answer. Alrighty, y'all, we did it. 6 for 6. We crushed a psych-soc passage. Hopefully that was helpful, seeing exactly how I walked through the passage, how much time I spent per question, and seeing the tips and strategies I used as we walk through the passage together. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel so you can get more walkthroughs, tips, and strategies. Make sure to check out our 528 series by Vikram and see exactly what it takes to get a perfect score on the MCAT. And feel free to click the link in our bio to get more questions sent to you every single day so you can get every last bit of practice in before test day. Congrats, and let's get it.